Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis. Joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. And it's draft season. And what would draft season be without Kendall himself? Kendall Mursky. You can find him on Twitter at Mursky Kendall. Together, we are the Bills guys. This is the Air Raid Hour presented by the Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza. They are the flagship sponsor of this show. Head on over to picassospizza.net. They got 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. You can go online. Again, the website is picassospizza.net. You can order for pickup. You can order for delivery. Even if you're a little tad out of range, you can get it door dashed. But if you're completely out of range, you're out of town, you're out of state, you can order those frozen pizzas online, delivered right to your door. You just got to pop them right in the oven. You get that delicious buffalo pizza anywhere in the continental USA. Again, the website is picassospizza.net. They are the flagship sponsor of this show. And Spin said it best. Spin said it best right at the beginning of the comment section. 3 more episodes before the draft. We are almost there, gentlemen. How we feeling?
Well, I like our well, 1, I'm excited, and 2, I like the approach we're taking these last couple shows before the draft. We're doing something a little different, trying to mix it up a little, not trying to regurgitate the same kind of format and or style that you see a lot out there. So tonight's going to be fun. And then obviously, we've got it kind of figured out now that on Monday's show, the show before the draft, we're going to be doing a full first round, every team mock, just the first round. And that's going to be fun because we're going to have to really think about what could realistically happen and get ourselves ready for Thursday night, and also do it in a way that, doesn't put ourselves in a position where we're making sure the Bills get who we want, but being realistic about it. So that'll be fun. But looking forward to tonight. Looking forward to the draft, man. It's coming up now. We're getting close.
I got a feeling that when we do a mock next Monday, Chris Olave is not going to be there at 25.
I have a feeling.
Kendall, how about you? How you feeling with just 11 days? Really 10 for maybe some of the people listening to this on demand tomorrow morning. 10 days away from the NFL draft.
I have hit draft fatigue. I'm at the point where I want the draft to be over so all the takes can end and we can just see how these guys fare in the NFL. I'm like 100 guys deep on scouting. I've watched 4 games on 100 dudes. It's a lot. It's a lot of film. My eyes are bleeding. I need a break, and I need to just hone in on the 7-6 guys that the Bills actually take.
And what a perfect way to sort of like, after the draft is over, it was announced today, QB1 Josh Allen has been chosen to play in the match. It's going to be Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. 12 holes, prime time, June 1st, 6 p.m. on TNT. I looked it up, gentlemen. It's a Wednesday. So Greg and Aaron and Anthony have to deal with doing the live shows while QB1 is playing golf. We get to
So is our Thursday show just analyzing it?
It's probably going to be a swing by swing analysis, I think, of what had happened the night previous. So
is it a scramble? I don't know how it's
no, the way so
different rules for the holes, I believe.
Yeah, the way they've done it in prior matches when they had like Phil and whoever it is, they would do a best ball for like the front 9, and then they would do like an alternate shot for the back 9 or something like that, right? So it wasn't always the same.
And there's format. A catch because it starts at 6 p.m., which I thought was really weird, even though it is 3 o'clock Las Vegas time. Only 12 holes, so it's only going to be 12 holes. So yeah, I think the tiebreaker should be who can throw the ball the farthest.
They should legit play a hole with only their arms.
Yeah, that one would be interesting. Tom Brady would lose that one for sure.
Might be the one and only time I root for Patrick Mahomes.
I know.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, what we're actually going to do today is, in a moment, we're going to bring on a special guest. You've seen him before in the comment section. I will reveal who it is in a moment, but what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be running a late round gem, or a day 3 NFL draft snake draft. where we're going to go and it's going to be 5 total rounds for a total of 20 players. And we are going to snake draft some of the later round prospects in this draft that we feel could be good fits or good value for the Buffalo Bills. Now, a couple of rules that go along with the snake draft, obviously 5 rounds, so a total of 20 players will be selected. You can only take 1 player per position group. So once Kendall takes a running back, he cannot take another running back. So you can't double up on position groups. So that sort of plays into the strategy a little bit. Like if somebody takes a running back in the first round, or 2 people take a running back in the first round, maybe you hold off until the end if you really want to take a running back, knowing other people aren't going to snag your pick. There is a predetermined list of ineligible players, which I am going to get to in a little bit. And I know you guys were a little upset, but I wanted to challenge us.
No, I'm not upset.
To
I
pick some
actually
new.
like it.
I was a little salty. I'm not going to lie.
Kendall was a little
No,
salty.
force the hand. Like they're none.
Yeah,
Don't
that's the
leave it
thing.
up for debate during the draft. Like this is the list.
Yeah,
Take it as you want.
So I created a list of like 140 players that were ineligible to be selected in the snake draft. Some of them are guys that you might see in the 5th, 6th, 7th round of a simulator, but I truly believe when draft day rolls around that they very well could be off the board by the time the Buffalo Bills pick. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but some of them are some names that we've recycled a ton on this show. I wanted to get some new names into the snake draft. I know for one, I'm not going to be picking any of my players from the last week's show in my no matter what list. Even though a ton of them are eligible, I will not be drafting Malcolm Rodriguez tonight. I will not be drafting Ty Chandler tonight. None of those guys will be coming off the board for me. I'm going to do this mental exercise and pick some new players, but a predetermined list of ineligible players. Sort of the mindset is like 5th round and later type of players. I think that like in the 4th round, it's really like who are the good 3rd round players or the early day 3 players that fall to the Bills at 130. So we're gonna have a ton of conversations about fringe 3rd, 4th round prospects on Thursday's show. So we'll get to those type of players then. But for now, let's bring on our special guest. Let me change the background here real quick. It is Mr. Randy Hardman. How you doing today, Randy?
What's up?
Hey, man, we are just absolutely living the dream here. I know that you are living the dream. We got your Iowa State Cyclones covered here on Cover One. Obviously, Breece Hall has already met with the Buffalo Bills. I know you're excited about that. You got his mock up there in your avatar. And for those of you listening, when this show is over, head back to the Cover One YouTube page. And Eric Turner sat down with Charlie Kohler and broke down film for about 15, 20 minutes. It's a really cool Cover One.
I've already watched it.
Feature. And Randy's already watched it. So, so that should be real interesting for you. But Randy, how are you feeling right now as we head into the sort of the home stretch of draft season?
I mean, I feel good about it. I think there's, as we've mentioned before, there's a lot of meat in the middle of these drafts. I don't think day 3 is going to provide a lot of staying power, but you might get a couple surprises here and there for us and other teams. But overall, I think a lot of the bulk that you're going to get is going to be 2 to 4 and maybe 7 to 5. And
Brandon Beane's even come out and he's really said that. He said the meat of this draft is really picks like 15 through like 90. He said maybe you get through 150, like maybe you get into the 5th round. There's still going to be some guys there who slide. So Brandon Beane has made that comment himself as well. So before we get started, I want to go through 2 lists. The first list I want to go through is late round guys who the Buffalo Bills have been linked to in the pre-draft process. So provided that what I'm about to provide right now is a list of players who have met with the Bills in some shape or form or another that are probably projected to go after the 4th round of the NFL draft. So the list here that I have, Max Borghi, the running back from Washington State, met with the Buffalo Bills on a number of occasions. He said he made that comment at the Combine. Dameon Pierce from Florida met with the Buffalo Bills at the Senior Bowl. Charleston Rambo, the wide receiver from Miami, had a private workout with the Buffalo Bills down in Miami. Cole Turner, the tight end from Nevada, met virtually. Jalen Weidermeyer, the tight end from Texas A&M, was a top 30 visit. James Mitchell, the tight end from Virginia Tech, top 30 visit. Lacita Smith, Senior Bowl. The Buffalo Bills had some good conversations with him. We have that information from our guy, Russ Brown. Seems like the Buffalo Bills really honing in on Lacita Smith and Donovan West, who the Buffalo Bills met with at the Combine. Those are all of sort of the offensive late round players the Buffalo Bills have been linked to. Randy, I'm going to start with you. Just based on, like, I don't want you to give anything away for the snake draft that we're about to do, but any of those players sort of catch your eye a little bit as something, maybe one that sticks out to you as rather interesting? Oh, so we got Randy on mute here. So Dave, I'm going to ask you, any of these players that seem maybe a little bit interesting to you?
I mean, Donovan West is obviously interesting. One of the guys from Kendall's, no matter what list, center background, but can likely maybe be a swing interior offensive lineman. I know, Kendall had mentioned during his analysis, like a little light in the frame, but maybe as a center, that's fine. But maybe he can add a few pounds. But versatile interior offensive lineman, I like that. Obviously, blocking for our guy Rashad White out there at ASU. Is nice. I do think that Rambo is interesting to me, but I feel like that's not really, in my mind, that's not really what the Bills need right now in the receiver room. I think right now it's like wide receiver early or bust if you're the Bills in the draft. That's just my personal view. And if you're going to take a guy like Rambo, it's probably maybe a double dip situation where you've already maybe addressed a top talent very early. But look, I think that it's important, right, to kind of look at the fact that they are looking at running backs as well that could potentially be in that same sort of range where they've drafted running backs the last couple years, right? The third round range. And I'm not saying Max Borghi will be in that range, but it's kind of, you wouldn't be necessarily surprised if he ended up kind of maybe sneaking into the very, very tail end of day 2, but more likely he'd be a day 3 guy. But it's good that the Bills are doing their homework on different positions, different conferences, and it's important that they kind of round out their meetings with guys that aren't all top end guys, because we know they've met with several of the top end guys, and so they need to keep that balance, which I think is important.
Yeah, we got on the defensive side, you have Isaiah Thomas, who the Buffalo Bills edge rusher from Oklahoma, the Bills met with virtually. Jaden Peavy, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M, met with him at the Combine. Josh Thompson was talked to by the Bills both at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine. And Monteric Brown, the cornerback from Arkansas, met with the Buffalo Bills virtually. Kendall, I know you did some work on Josh Thompson today. Talk maybe a little bit about cornerback Josh Thompson from the University of Texas.
Yeah, he's a really traitsy guy. Had a really good RAS score. I believe it was like mid 9s, ran a 4.40. You can see it on tape. He's really quick. He's got good footwork, a little bit tight-hipped. There are some limitations to his game at the cornerback position. He's really, really willing in run support, but...
Did we lose Kendall? This is
yeah, you did lose me for a little bit right there. Where'd you lose me? What was my last thought?
Something on
you said willing and run support, but there was a but coming.
Perfect timing. Willing and run support, but he can overcommit at times. He's very, very aggressive, kind of like heat-seeking missile kind of play type in the run support, and that ends up in a lot of missed tackles for him. He definitely needs to work on tackling technique, but he's got all the tools to be a good zone corner, especially in a pattern matching scheme like the Buffalo Bills have, because he has all the traits to play man, but that tight hip nature that he plays with, it's not necessarily translatable to pure man, but if you're masking it in mostly zone stuff, it could kind of, mask some of those deficiencies. So I think he's got all the tools to be a cornerback, but he might end up being a safety at the next level. But I like the tools. I like the traits that he provides.
How about you, Randy? We just railed off some offensive and defensive players. Some of the later round guys the Buffalo Bills have shown at least some semblance of interest in. Any one of those guys sort of pique your interest for the Buffalo Bills?
Well, you touched on it a little bit, but Rambo, as a potential double dipped option, I mean, good size, good speed, can separate, has a good release package. The problems come in with inconsistent hands, drops, and injuries. So how many of those things are fixable? How many of those things can be put behind them? And what are going to be, permanent issues that maybe you can't fix? To me, as evidenced with Dawson Knox, the right amount of work ethic and coaching can fix hands. to an extent. It may not make him
Mhm.
the most reliable catcher, but it's going to fix him more so than, what he's maybe gotten in college in terms of coaching. And then injuries are a freak thing. Sometimes they go away, sometimes they stay with you. So, as a day 3 guy, yeah, that's an intriguing prospect, especially with the size and speed that he offers.
Yeah, I mean, Rambo's the type of guy too, where he's already sort of shown a little bit of progression with the hands, where the hands were an issue at Oklahoma, but he sort of started to show some improvement at his time at the University of Miami with De'Ara King there, who is a quarterback the Buffalo Bills have shown some interest in as probably a possible UDFA. So it looks like the Buffalo Bills been doing their homework at the University of Miami. Obviously, Sean McDermott and Manny Diaz have a previous relationship, so that probably helps as well. All right, before we get into our snake draft tonight, I want to go through the list of players who are ineligible to be selected. So what's going to happen is we're going to be snake drafting 5 rounds of later round prospects that we like, that we think could be good fits for the Buffalo Bills, guys we think could squeeze their way onto the roster or develop over the course of a year or two on the practice squad and find a role on this football team at some point, because that's obviously what you're sort of hoping for with these later round picks. So before we get started, I want to go through the list of players who are ineligible to be selected. So if you don't hear these names, it's because we're not allowed to draft them. And I was very loose with this list. It's a rather large list. The Buffalo Bills pick like 130 in the 4th round, and there's more than 130 players on this list. Because like I said, I wanted to sort of challenge us today to start naming some different players and some guys that we haven't really talked about yet on this show. So some familiar names here at quarterback. It's pretty obvious. Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Jack Cohn, Carson Strong are off the board. At running back, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Brian Robinson Jr., Isaiah Spiller, James Cook, Rashad White, Zamir White, and Pierre Strong Jr. are all off the board. Some of those running backs very possibly could be there in the 4th round, but like I said, I want to challenge us to start naming some guys that we haven't talked about yet. At wide receiver, Jamison Williams, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Chris Olave, Treylon Burks, Jahan Dodson, Sky Moore, George Pickens, Christian Watson, Alec Pierce, John Mechie, Calvin Austin, Wan'Dale Robinson, Khalil Shakir, Jalen Tolbert, Kyle Phillips, and Tyquan Thornton, all off the board in this scenario. They cannot be selected. And then this is the one that I know irks some of you guys, tight end. Trey McBride, Cade Otton, Jelani Woods, Greg Dulcich, Jeremy Ruckert, Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kohler, and Daniel Bellinger. Randy, I know you're the Iowa State guy. Talk about Charlie Kohler a little bit and why you like him so much before we get to the snake draft.
Okay, so first of all, you got positive production. Was it 23 touchdowns? Like how many? 1,600 something yards? A bunch of catches. I mean, the production is there. Okay, and then you got to look at the physical things that you can't teach. Size. He's big. He's a willing blocker. Not the best blocker, but he's a very willing blocker. Then you look at what he can bring to the offense. In 12 personnel, he can line up in the slot. He can line up out wide. He can line up on the end. He can go in. He can run out. He knows how to read coverages. He brings everything that you want to the position. What he doesn't have is elite speed and fast twitch. That's really it. He does everything else well, and he's very intelligent. This is an academic All-American engineer. He's already graduated, working on a 2nd degree. I mean, this is a high character, high intelligent, very high floor guy that you're going to get a lot of production out of. And at 6'6", he's a red zone monster.
Yeah, 100%. Now on the defensive side of this list, actually, I still have some offensive line to go as well. Evan Neal, Ike Ekwonu, Charlie Cross, Trevor Penning, Bernard Raymond, Tyler Smith, Daniel Falele, Nicholas Petit-Frere, Abraham Lucas, Kellen Deitch, Braxton Jones, Matt Olesko, all off the board. Interior offensive line, Linderbaum, Zion Johnson, Kenyon Green, Sean Ryan, Jamari Sawyer, Dylan Parham, Darian Kennard, Cole Strange, Zach Tom, Ed Ingram, Luke Fortner, and Cam Jurgens are off the board. Now transitioning to defense, edge rushers, Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeau, Jermaine Johnson, George Karlaftis, Boye Mafe, David Ajabo, Arnold Ebiketie, Logan Hall, Cameron Thomas, Joshua Pascal, Sam Williams, Nick Benito, Kingsley Enagbare, Drake Jackson, Majai Sanders, D'Angelo Malone, and Amari Barno all off. And those last three are guys that we've talked about at length. And on the IDL, you got Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Perion Winfrey, DeMarvin Leal, Travis Jones, Fedarian Mathis, Thomas Booker, Zachary Carter, Matthew Butler, Otito Ogbonya, Ayuma Owuzurike, and Christopher Hinton, all off the board for the Buffalo Bills in this snake draft. Randy, again, I'm going to sort of, since you haven't been on the show in a while, I'm going to give you a chance, whether it's Kingsley and Agbury or whether it's your guy Owuzurike. Is there any prospects here that you want to talk about before we get to this snake draft?
Well, first of all, Judge, I'm just curious. How is it that you can pronounce Owuzurike right, but you can't pronounce Enigbari right?
Ooh, I screwed that one up, didn't I?
Yeah, it's curious to me.
I'm not a Gamecock like you, man.
I know. Owuzurike is the one that I wanted to talk about because that's the guy that I think he's been vastly underrated throughout this process. At what is he, 6'5.5"? He's played all along the line, up and down, all positions. He had a big breakout year this year as far as getting to the quarterback, getting the sacks. I get a lot of Jordan Phillips vibes from him. But as a lower round guy, I think you kind of don't have the pitfalls of what Jordan Phillips went through in Miami of kind of having to be brought back down to earth. He's a high motor guy. I know he's from Detroit, and with his upbringing from that area, I think you have a high character. If you look into his background, he kind of fits the Bills Mafia DNA, the Bills DNA that McDermott and Bean talk about. So I really like him. I think he's a great value in the middle of day 3. I don't think he's going to really get past round 5, to be honest with you. I think that his stock is going to be higher in draft rooms than in the Twitter sphere, but we'll see.
Yeah. And we got Elvis Sidepack coming in saying air raid hour, hand clap. Thank you. No, thank you, Elvis. We appreciate that. And hey, stay active in that comment section. We'll make sure we get some of your comments up there tonight. Always appreciate you. Thank you. And then last but not least, I'm going to be breaking some Troy Anderson fans' hearts here. Our last list of ineligible players for the snake draft. And a couple of people are saying in the comment section, like, who's left? That's the point of this exercise tonight, is to start talking about maybe some names that we haven't heard about yet. Maybe after tonight's show, you'll hear about a guy or two. You'll go and you'll YouTube them. You'll look up some scouting reports, and you'll have a new favorite player to talk about up until the draft begins a week and a half. So at linebacker, Devin Lloyd, Nakobe Dean, Chad Muma, Quay Walker, Leo Chenal, Troy Anderson, Christian Harris, Darian Beavers, Brian Asamoah, Channing Tindall, and DeMarco Jackson are off the board. At cornerback, Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley Jr., Andrew Booth, Trent McDuffie, Kaiir Elam, Kyler Gordon, Tariq Woolen, Roger McCreary, Mario Goodrich, Alante Taylor, Damari Mathis, Cam Taylor-Britt, Martin Emerson, Josh Williams, Zion McCollum, Kobe Bryant, and Jalen Armour Davis are off the board. And last but not least, Kyle Hamilton, Dax Hill, Lewis Seen, Jaquan supposed to say Brisker. That's a typo right there. Jalen Petrie, Nick Cross, Kirby Joseph, Brian Cook, and Dane Belton are off the list. And last but not least, no punt god, Matt Araiza is off of the board for this snake draft. And Chewy Baca comes, this says his name in Roosevelt available. So he is not available, but maybe a UB player sneaks their way onto the list. I doubt it. If I'm not putting a UB player on the list, which I'm not, I know these guys probably aren't putting a UB guy on the list. So we're going to get started now with our snake draft of these later round prospects. I got the first pick, despite the fact that Kendall didn't believe me. I screenshotted it. I put all the names into an auto generator, screenshot. It'll be me with the first pick, then Kendall, then Dave, then Randy, and then we will loop back around. And we're only going to use the bell at the beginning of every round. So I'm going to institute the ticker only at the beginning of every round to signify the beginning of every round. So the first round is underway. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and feel free to try to throw out some suggestions as we get going. Pops Mafia says JoJo Doman. Chris Jenke says Damone Clark. Brian Day says Jake the Snake Roberts. My first pick is James Mitchell, tight end from Virginia Tech. This is a guy who had a top 30 visit with the Buffalo Bills. To me, James Mitchell from Virginia Tech is very much in the Charles Clay mold, 6'4", 250 pounds. The concern with James Mitchell is that he had a torn ACL in September, but that's likely why he was a top 30 visit with the Buffalo Bills. They want to double, triple, quadruple check those medicals. And he's also supposedly supposed to be ready for the start of the season. This is a guy with high football IQ. He's a reliable blocker, good hands, not the craftiest route runner in the world. He needs to add strength to be a better blocker in line, but those are all things that you can work on as a tight end 3 for James Mitchell, beating out maybe a guy like Tommy Sweeney and developing into a TE2 when OJ Howard probably maximizes his value and gets out of here next season. The statistics for James Mitchell are not going to jump out at you, but his QB play at Virginia Tech has been awful. This seems like the sort of tight end that a guy like Aaron Cromer would really like to work with. I think it's better taking a guy like James Mitchell in the 5th round than wasting valuable draft capital on a guy like, even though I like Trey McBride, even though I like Jelani Woods in the 2nd round, because the hope for me is that we can figure out a way to retain Dawson Knox long-term. And the only thing that we're hopefully looking for is a TE2. So James Mitchell is my pick, and he's on my board starting in the 5th round. All right, Kendall, that leads us to you.
All right, Tilt, I'm sorry, but I'm taking Monteric Brown. Cornerback.
You just made my decision a lot easier for the next pick then.
I figured. I'm taking Monteric Brown out of Arkansas. He's not a RAS king. He's not someone who had the greatest combine testing, but I think, as Tilda said, he did enough, and his tape speaks much higher than his RAS score would. He's got good reactive athleticism, which allows him to operate in press coverage. On top of that, he's pretty good with his punches and his jamming technique in press. So that kind of allows him to mitigate any recovery speed issues when you're, getting a jam on those guys at the line of scrimmage. He's got good zone coverage principles, solid route processing, and he's got solid closing speed. It's not great, and that's kind of where the RAS comes into play. He definitely can get his hand in on the ball. He's got good ball skills, but it does take him more football intelligence and route processing to get to the ball early than using his speed to get to the ball early. So that's kind of how he goes about being productive on the ball. He's very willing and capable in run support, which I really love about him. Obviously, you got to do that if you're going to be a Buffalo Bills corner. With the amount of nickel that they're running, you got to be good setting the edge as a cornerback, and he's very willing in that regard. He could get a little bit better in tackling technique, but it's not that bad. It's really not that bad at all, and the willingness is really the thing that you want to look for. Someone who's willing in run support, you can work on the technique. So I really like Monteric Brown, especially as a fit. He's got the length to play zone. I believe he's 6 feet tall. He's got over 30-inch arms. And he's got the athleticism to cover ground if he has to. But I think his processing and his principles in zone coverage is what's going to win the Buffalo Bills coaching staff over with a guy like Monteric Brown.
I like it. So off the board thus far, James Mitchell and Monteric Brown. And Dave, that leads us to you. Who is your pick here in the 1st round of the late round gem snake draft?
First pick of the late round gem is going to be the one guy that was on my no matter what list. It's the only player I'm going to pick tonight that was also on my no matter what list. And Kendall did make my decision a bit easier because I was going to be deciding between Monteric Brown and this other player. But it's Velus Jones. I'm taking Velus here with my first pick. We obviously know about the special teams prowess, over 100 kick returns in his career, added punt returning to his repertoire last year. Was, I believe, the special teams player of the year in the SEC last year, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody fact check me on that. An okay Raz in the 7s, right? But also we're talking about a guy who can come in and really be your punt and kick returner from day one. I don't think it would be a competition. I know the concern on him from a lot of folks is that his age, right? He's an older prospect, but he is a great returner, as Ronald says, and he does have inside out flex. Now, I think he'd probably start out in the slot with the Bills, but he does have some inside out flex as well. So for a later round prospect, like, he kind of has a lot of things going for him, right? It's the polish and the route running, the route running tree that I think you probably look at as something that needs to get fine tuned. But for a day 3 guy, a late round guy, I'm putting my cards in for Velus.
And we got Chewbacca comes in. He says another Stevenson. I would disagree with that. Number one, it's a bigger, wider frame. I think with a guy like Velus Jones, got
slot.
a little bit more
Yeah.
thickness to him. I would also say that a guy like Marcus Stevenson, you were projecting his return abilities based off of what he did in college. He didn't actually get a lot of run as a returner in college. It was Velus Jones who was literally the SEC Special Teams Player of the Year last year. So a little bit more special teams experience would probably allow a guy like Velus Jones to acclimate to the NFL more quickly in terms of
I like
his
him,
role on special teams.
I like if you're gonna think about a guy who was drafted that maybe you look at from last year's draft that you could maybe Amari Rodgers, right? That the Packers drafted to be is kind of the guy that I would look at as a comparable.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparable for him too. And I think the only reason why you're probably not hearing Velus Jones's name higher up, like where Amari Rodgers got drafted, is because he's a 25-year-old prospect. So, hey, if that can drop Velus Jones into the 4th, 5th round for the Buffalo Bills, that's quite the steal. So far in the first round, we've seen James Mitchell, Monteric Brown, and Velus Jones come off the board. Ryan Sullivan says no Marcus Stevenson slander. So Randy, you're up, and you've got some suggestions here from the comments section. I've seen Danny Gray mentioned. I have seen Cole Kelly mentioned. Javon Hele from Coastal Carolina. Smoke Monday has been mentioned. Who are you going with here, Randy? Because you got back-to-back picks.
2 picks for Randy here.
Oh, I mean, I got some options. Here. So running through different scenarios, I mean, if we're talking about the first 3 rounds now, because we're in day 3, so this is the 4th round, theoretically. You want to try and get some run out of this pick. I could go, like Ryan said, with John Ridgeway, the Vanilla Gorilla, if I wanted to add him to the mix. I could go, with a guard, one of the guards that are out there. But I think I'm going to try and go with somebody that's going to be able to get his hands on the ball and make some plays when Devin Singletary isn't in the game, because in this scenario, we didn't get Breece Hall, unfortunately. So, who's going to be Judge.
My next pick was going to be a running back. So actually now I'm less concerned because now I know exactly who it's going to be. My guy. It's not going to be my guy. All right.
Nope.
Drop it on us here.
It's going to be Zaquandre Wright, running back, South Carolina, the 6'1", slippery guy from Columbia, former Florida State linebacker, recruit and transfer. So that's going to be my guy. And then following up with that for the next pick, I'm going to get some Tremaine Edmonds insurance and go Mike Rose, linebacker.
I like Mike Rose. I do like Mike.
Iowa State, the Hurricane, versatile. Probably closer to his ceiling than a lot of the other prospects, which is why he's a day 3 guy. But he's a solid, good instinctual, decent sideline, but not an athletic freak by any means. Probably a grade above AJ Klein, if you were to ask me, where he kind of ranks as far as what Bills fans might kind of relate to. But a more AJ athletic, Klein, more rangy AJ Klein.
State, by the way.
Yeah.
AJ Klein, also an Iowa State guy. And just so we're clear, I have no connection to Iowa State whatsoever.
Mike Rose did get a 9.07 RAS, by the way. He was 9.07 RAS, so he did test pretty well.
Yeah. Testing matters a lot. Wink, wink.
All right. So the first round finishes up James Mitchell, Monteric Brown, Velus Jones, and Quan White. Let us know in the comment section who you think took round 1 here. And then the second round, Randy led things off with Mike Rose, the linebacker from Iowa State. So Tilt, it is back to you. You've already taken Velus Jones Jr. Who are you going to compliment with him here, the next pick of this of the snake draft here?
Yeah, so for me, this was tough, but I'm going to have to take a guy that was on someone else's, no matter what list, not on mine, But I don't really love. I will say this: I don't really love a lot of the late round running backs. But there are a couple guys I do like. Right, I like Hassan Haskins. I like Ty Chandler. I like Bam Knight. I like Quan White, who Randy picked. But I'm gonna have to pick Ty Chandler here with my second pick. So I'm going offense back to back here. Obviously tested well, had the 8.8 RAS. I kind of like made the comment that he kind of looks like a wide receiver running the ball. Obviously was a transfer from Tennessee, so I kind of have that tie-in back to Velas here.
Tilt the
13
traitor
rushing.
going to the Tar Heel.
I know. But I mean, I game recognize his game, right? So 13 rushing touchdowns last year. Reliable in pass protection. I like his short area burst. I think Judge was mentioning that on the last show. He does have top end speed. He did run pretty well in the 40, but what really impresses me the most about him is how he can get through tight windows quickly, right? And it's one cut and he's gone. And so the one thing is like there's not a huge history of him as a receiving back. There's untapped potential there, I think. Not that he can't do it, but there's not a huge history there. But for a late round guy, he just keeps screaming off the page to me. So I'll go with Ty Chandler. And again, situation like Randy mentioned where we don't get a Breece Hall or someone like that early.
And, Pete Nana comes in and says, apparently we all like Ty. Yes, he is definitely one of the certified fresh from the Air Raid Hour. He gets all of our stamp of approval. Silas Whittle comes in and says 4.3840. So he's got that long speed. Eric Gelko, who is the guy in charge of putting together the East-West Shrine Game rosters, he came out today with a tweet and pretty much said that like the number of teams Ty Chandler has visited in the pre-draft process, him clocking that 4.38. The week he did at the East-West Shrine Game, he literally said Ty Chandler moved himself up into the first class or first tier of running backs in this draft. So if Ty Chandler is taken in the early 4th round, as opposed to like where he's going in some of these simulators, the 6th or the 7th round, don't be shocked like that. It appears like Ty Chandler and also his offensive line mate, Josh Izidu, there at North Carolina are fast rising up the draft board. So they could be some shockers in the, I wouldn't say they would go on day 2, but early day 3 guys. Maybe Izidu does go on day 2. You never know with offensive linemen. But Kendall, you are up now. We've got Mike Rose and Ty Chandler off the board this round. Where are you going?
I'm also going to go running back. I'm going to take Dameon Pierce. I really like Dameon Pierce. Every single year I fall in love with the angry runners. I fall in love with them every single year, and it's usually a mistake, but I really love the running style. Anyone who runs tough and angry, sign me up for that. He, to me, has shades of Javonte Williams just in that style of play. Great pass protector, showed that at the Senior Bowl. Surprisingly good route runner and pass catcher, which I was really shocked to see at the Senior Bowl after not really seeing it on tape. But he is a one-cut and downhill, no-nonsense running style. He's got good vision and decisiveness. Keyword is decisiveness, really. He picks that hole and he bursts through it. He runs with good power and unmatched toughness, good contact balance, too, at the point of attack. I think the thing that gets lost with him is he ran a 4.5940, so I think people just assume he's not fast. And I can agree he doesn't have long speed, but he has burst. He has really good acceleration, in my opinion. He tested in his 10-yard split, 1.58 in the 72nd percentile, so it's nothing to scoff at. It's pretty solid 72nd percentile for running backs. But the big thing with him is just that running style, man. He brings you that power back, that dog at the position. He's going to get those tough yards. He's going to fight for every yard that he can get. And he's a 3-down back in terms of traits, in terms of what he brings in his skill set. He can pass protect, he can run routes out of the backfield, and he can get those tough yards for you at the running back position. Hopefully add some years on to Josh Allen's career by finding a power back. So give me some Dameon Pierce, and hopefully we can develop some of those areas that can bring out some more of the playmaking ability from him.
Boss Mafia comes in and says, since no one else can now choose a running back, Judge making moves to running back to his last round. Yeah, I was going to take a running back with my next pick, but I'm moving it now to my last round.
And you have
strategery here, and I now have 2 free picks. And since I will be skipping over my running back, maybe it's Devontae Price, maybe it's somebody else, who knows? I am going to be moving to my next pick, and it's actually a wide receiver that I am really high on in this draft class, and he's starting to get a lot of love in the pre-draft visit circuit. This is another player who's a little bit older, 6th-year senior. I'm going with Samori Toure, the wide receiver.
He was on my short
Nebraska.
Yes.
6'1", 191 pounds. Like I said, 6th-year senior. He went from the University of Montana. He transferred to Nebraska. What I like about him and the role that I see him playing early on, he's got vertical playmaking ability down the field. He's a field stretcher, and he's got really good ball tracking skills. He ran a 4.4 340. He had an 8.3 RAS in totality. He's sort of like a backup flanker. I think the backup Z, a guy that you can see just really early on in his career stretching the field, and then maybe he can develop into more. In 2021, he had 75 targets, 61% completion percentage when targeted, 19.5 yards per catch. That's incredible. 5 touchdowns in the Big Ten. 80% of his snaps came out of the slot, and he was 10th in total deep receiving yards per Pro Football Focus. He had kick return experience early on in his career, a little bit of limited punt return experience. He'd sort of have to be reacquainted to all of that, but he definitely has the speed asset to maybe be a gunner and maybe supplant a guy like Tywan Jones on the roster, get a guy like Tywan Jones off the roster. And while you are utilizing him for his skill, his speed, his down the field tracking ability, you can develop some of those other aspects of his game, make him more of a complete receiver, and maybe make him more than just a niche receiver that he would be early on in his career. Samori Toure is on my draft board starting in round 5. Big fan of Samori Toure. All right. Pick. And I am back up again. And my next pick is going to be, I'm going to go best punter available, gentlemen. And I am going to take Jordan Stout out of Penn State. A really great stat was posted by Austin Gale of Pro Football Focus in the Tailgate podcast the other day. I believe it was Saturday afternoon. Punts in between the 30s in the year 2021 only. 36 total punts from Jordan Stout. 83% of them landed inside of the 20. 53% of them landed inside of the 10. Only 6% of them landed as touchbacks, and an average field position of the 12-yard line. All of those statistics better than punt god Matt Araiza. So I'm going with Jordan Stout from Penn State as a guy. I would rather have Jordan Stout in the 6th round than Matt Araiza in the 3rd or the 4th round. So give me Jordan Stout all day. Make him your Tyler Bass of punters. He's in play for me starting in the 6th round. So I went wide receiver with Samori Toure. Then I went punter with Jordan Stout. And Kendall, you are back on the clock.
All right. I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Eric Izukama. Excuse me, of Texas Tech. He's someone with inside-outside versatility. Plays in a spread system, obviously playing the Big 12. Everyone's running spread system over there. But he's got good rack ability. He's tough to tackle. He's a big dude. 6'2" 209 pounds. Runs a 4.55 40. Honestly, I think he plays a little bit faster than that. He can definitely take the top off defenses if he's asked to do so. Really just toughness. Toughness is his game. He's used in a gadget role on top of kind of some short intermediate routes. He wasn't really asked to take the top off the defense a lot, but when he was asked to do it, he could do it. So that was something that I really liked from him. Definitely some refinement that's needed in terms of his release package and his route running. It's not necessarily crisp, seeing as he's kind of their manufactured touches guy, orbit motions, jet sweeps, anything to get him the ball because he's good with the ball in his hands. So he definitely needs to work on the portion before he gets the ball. That's something that I think, honestly, he would be treated very well by joining the Buffalo Bills with, all the route runners that we got and the separators we got on top of Chad Hall.
Some Gabriel Davis vibes to his game, I feel like.
There's definitely some of that. I think the biggest difference is just the rack ability. I definitely see that. There are some similarities there. It's a physical brand of football. He's a good blocker. He's tough to tackle with the ball in his hands, but he's a little bit more creative and dynamic with the ball in his hands. I think that's pretty much the only difference there. But yeah, really.
So you're saying he's better than Gabriel Davis? Wow, calling your shot, Kendall. I respect it.
No. Rack does not mean better. Rack does not.
You said everything else is the same, but rack.
Everything else is the same in terms of stylistically.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, but I got to make sure that people in the chat know. So yeah, no, I really like Eric Ezukanma. That's going to be a mouthful on draft day. But no, I really like his game. Pretty holistic. Just needs to get developed. That's really the only thing with him. But he's a day 3 pick, but he's got talent. He's definitely got some tools to work with.
All right. So we got Eric Izukanma, Samari Toure off the board, Velus Jones off the board. So Randy can wait, take his sweet time if he wants to take a wide receiver at any point. But Dave, you're back up next. You have already selected Velus Jones and Ty Chandler. Looking pretty good so far. How are you going to add to this? How are you going to make this a nice trio here?
Yeah. I could go a lot of ways here, right? And I'm debating, like, do I stick with, do I keep going with the offense here? Do I mix it up? There's a lot of guys still available. So I'm going to go to the other side of the ball for this pick. And I'm going to pick a linebacker with this pick, and a guy that I've been really getting to like a lot lately and doing research on him. And I know he's been sort of on Eric's radar as far as a fit schematically, and that's Chance Campbell from Ole Miss. Transferred from Maryland, really broke out last year. Had 19, over 100 tackles, 109 tackles, 12 and a half TFL, and he had 6 sacks. So the guy did it all for Ole Miss last year. Pretty sufficient athlete, clearly by the testing, the 9.69 RAS. And I think he would be like the guy that you would take if you missed out on a Chad Muma early in the draft, right? He could come in. He could probably be your backup Mike or Will. He could probably fill the AJ Klein role starting out, and he could be a special teamer, right? So, I feel like that based on all of those factors, as a late round linebacker, you could do worse than Chance Campbell. I like Chance Campbell a lot, and I think he'd be a nice late round guy. So I'm try to go with a guy that's more towards the end of the draft here with my next pick, just to get some new names out there.
And if anyone just sees me like oddly just giggling and has no idea why, it's because Randy is doing us a great service and posting all of our picks in the private chat of this streaming platform, and he's just giving all of the colleges some nice fun nicknames. Like when Kendall took Dameon Pierce, he called it the Redneck Swamp. When I took Samari Toure, he called it the Cornfields. When I took a punter, he said, doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. And I believe he just said Chance Campbell instead of Ole Miss. He put Annabelle South. So Randy's killing it in the comment section, making up college names here for some of these guys that were drafting. So Randy, that leaves you. You got to go away from the you've already tipped your pick. In the comment section, so make your pick official here.
It's like Twitter.
I can't believe that he wasn't on the list. I checked it twice just to make sure. I keep hearing that we need like 4 corners in this draft. Obviously we picked one with our first and second round picks, according to like 80% of the mocks out there. So I'm kidding. I like a Caleb Evans from Mizzou. He's big. He's got good range. Transfer from Tulsa, stepped up in competition this year. I think he's an upgrade from Levi Wallace without having to spend a premium pick. So, that's my guy. I think for a day 3, you could see him stepping in and starting. Like if we don't take a corner high, you could pick him on day 3, and I think he can step in and start from like within the first month of the season.
Yeah, he's definitely got the physical traits. And Kendall, I know you've broken down some of the film on a Caleb Evans. Do you think, Kendall, a Caleb Evans, if tasked, could be a guy within the first half of the football season who could step in and play on this defense?
I think he could. I don't know if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I would bank on it. I think he's got all the traits. He fits the archetype for what they want. He's got that length. He has experience in zone. But I think there are some rough edges with his game where, like, yeah, he did have a step up in competition, but I feel like his best games came against like lower level competition that Missouri played. Like I think his best game was against Central Michigan. I really like the player though. I do agree with what you're saying in theory, Randy. I think if the Bills do pass on a corner in the first 3 rounds, there are plenty of guys like the Monteric Browns of the world, like Martin Emerson, like a Caleb Evans. There are guys that fit what the Bills do, and they're not necessarily going to be high on other teams' boards because of, you know, the tools that they have to work in a man defense. But a Caleb Evans could be inserted into a Bills defense that asks you to play a ton of zone and gets the most out of your length and stuff like that, where he could serviceably come in and start at CB2 for the Buffalo Bills. It's not something I would bank on. I would, you know, that's where it's like Joe Hayden, Bryce Callahan.
I'll tell you, I think he can come in and challenge Dane Jackson from day one.
I wonder, I think there's definitely something to be said there because he's a great run defender. He doesn't play with the same kind of like energy and willingness to come forward, but he's really solid tackler. I think there's something there with that, but we know how high the Bills are on Dane Jackson. That's the biggest like caveat to that.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, but if they're in love with a guy like Dane Jackson, who they got in the 7th round, who they've actually spoken about and said there's no way in a non-COVID year he would have been available to us in the 7th round. So I feel like you can almost look at Dane Jackson like a 4th or a 5th round pick. But a guy like a Caleb Evans is coming in with a 3-round leap on probably a 3-round leap on a guy like Dane Jackson. And Caleb Evans is probably a guy who you're going to have to take in probably the 4th round if you're going to want to grab him. So you now have a 4th round pick and Dane Jackson, a late round pick, who are now competing for this job. Like, that's the thing. Like Dane Jackson, I'm sure the Bills are high in him, but there's no way like his job is like completely secure. A guy like a Caleb Evans could come in and he could show up and show out. And I think he's got all the traits that the Buffalo Bills look for. So Randy, through 3 picks, you have taken Quan White, the running back from South Carolina, sort of a change of pace receiving back. I think injuries have held him back in the pre-draft process. Maybe he would have tested a little bit better. Maybe he'd be more of a name that people talk about. Mike Rose, the 9+ RAS linebacker from Iowa State, seems very much in the AJ Klein role, someone the Buffalo Bills would like, and a Caleb Evans. So where are you going here with pick number 4?
Well, there's a couple different directions we can go. I thought about pulling the trigger on Ridgeway here, but I feel like we can maybe wait on that. It's not something that you need to do. But the one that I would like to get some more insurance on is interior offensive line. So I think I'm going to go with our guy, Lacita Smith from Virginia Tech.
Ooh, speak on it a little bit. What do you like about Lacita's game?
Well, I mean, I think he fits in well. I think Cromer would have a good time, getting the most out of what he brings. I think that, he did a good job at the Senior Bowl, showing that he belongs, that he fits in there. And, I think he checks a lot of boxes for what we want to do on the interior offensive line. And he doesn't have any pressure to start this year. He can step into a role. The main thing that I would like for any interior offensive line prospects going forward, and I know it kind of goes against McDermott's general, philosophy, but I'd like him to try and find 1 or 2 positions, but mainly one position for these guys and let them learn it. A lot of these guys coming out of college, they don't have the ability to absorb 3-4 positions as much as they might want them to, because you need them for game day versatility. I think that's hampered Cody Ford big time, and I would like to see them kind of scale it back on picks going forward. So Lacita Smith, get him in there at teach him both guard sides and let that be it.
Yeah, I think Lacita would perfectly slot in right behind Roger Saffold, and he'd be the heir apparent in 2020, in 2023 when Roger Saffold's contract obviously is up. So Dave, back to you. So far, you've gone Velus Jones, you have gone Ty Chandler, and you have gone Chance Campbell. So Jones, Chandler, and Campbell, who are you adding to this list here?
Till, can I just say that I feel like I know you're taking Ridgeway because you didn't have a poker face when Randy said, I think I can wait.
No. I want to take a guy here, but I don't want to be a snake, so I'm not going to do it to you, Kendall. So I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to be nice and let the record state that I am passing on someone to take someone of the same position, but a different player. Someone that almost made Judges No Matter What list, but did not. Someone that was on none of our No Matter What lists and probably was an honorable mention. and that's Luke Wattenberg, interior offensive lineman
Ooh.
from Washington. Was going to take Kendall's guy, Donovan West, but I didn't because we have already talked about him at length. So I'm going to take Wattenberg here. Similar profile, honestly, to a Donovan West. Had a good testing numbers with the 9.58 RAS. Center guard, flex, played center at Washington. The lateral movement is kind of what you look at with him and say there's some work to be done there. But you love his tenacity and power in the running game, especially as someone who is at that center position, right? And again, he's right around 300 pounds. So you figure at worst case, he can come in and be your backup center. He's a very good athlete. And if he adds a few pounds, he can likely be a swing interior offensive lineman for you. So going a little bit sort of different from some of the guys we've talked about on the no matter what list and even tonight, to go with Luke Wattenberg, interior offensive lineman from Washington.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite players in the class. He's a guy where, I mean, it would be honestly, I think, a really good scenario. He gives you backup left guard, center, and right guard flex. He had a really good week at the East West Shrine where he was snapping some, and then he played in the game at left guard. So, he can move around. Really well coached up there at the University of Washington. They always seem to be pumping out offensive linemen year after year there. And hey, if he doesn't have to come in and start right away, he's a guy you could probably stash on the practice squad too. Like, he's a guy you could probably get in the 7th round. He's a guy you could probably release, and he's a guy you could probably put on your practice squad, and you can give him a year to bulk up, right? So you can get him into your program. You can bulk him up. I mean, remember Ryan Bates came in here after that trade, and, he was 305 pounds when he was drafted. Josh Allen said last year the guy was 335 pounds. So the guy's put on 30 pounds of mass since he got here to Buffalo. It doesn't look like it's hampered at all his functional athleticism. So clearly Eric Ciano and some of the guys there in the strength and conditioning room are doing some good things with some of these Buffalo Bills players. So I think Buffalo would be a really ideal landing spot for a guy like Luke Wattenberg. All right, Kendall, you have Monteric Brown, Damian Pierce, and Eric Izukanma. Where are you going with your 4th selection here?
I really want to take Verone McKinley, but in all honesty, I can't take him because I've only watched half a game on him and I'd be talking out of my ass. So I'm going to go ahead and take John Ridgeway, even though from what I saw from McKinley, I think that would be a good value for the Bills. I'm going to go with John Ridgeway. I think the Bills could still stand to pick a developmental one tech behind Daquan Jones. I think that would be a smart move for them, especially late in the draft. So you're not, giving up a whole lot of assets for someone who's not really going to play a whole lot. So I think John Ridgeway is a smart add. He could go as early as the 4th round. I think he'll probably fall somewhere around late 4th, early 5th area. I think his lack of athleticism is concerning to an extent, but he's a menace against the run. He's super stout. Like, he provides a sufficient, if not more, mismatch ability. You have to double team him, especially in the pass game. He's not an explosive pass rusher or anything like that, but you want to make sure you double team him because he is overpowering. He will make you pay for single teaming him. He has that kind of power. And on top of that, when you double team him in the run game, he is really good when it comes to anchoring that double team and, not letting up too much ground there. He's got good motor. He's got solid, really heavy hands, very powerful hands. That motor isn't always getting the most use out of it because he doesn't have a lot of range or athleticism to him. So it's kind of a shame that, that motor isn't matched with some range, but I think that's something that he could work on, maybe shed a few pounds here or there, get a little bit more athletic. I think he's a little bit heavier than he even needs to be. But yeah, he's got mediocre range and mediocre stamina. You can kind of see him withering away as the game goes on, which is definitely something you don't love to see from one techs at the college level. But strength and conditioning, we rotate all of that stuff. We can get the best out of a dude and make him better in that regard. So I think you could find a lot of quality in John Ridgeway in the 4th, 5th round area. I wouldn't prefer, if I'm the Bills, I wouldn't prefer to do it until the 5th round, but I do like the player and I like the value that you could get from a guy like that.
And I think Chris Janke speaks for all of us when he says, watch your language, Kendall. Next time you're going to drop a swear word, let me know so I can bleep it. You know that we don't swear on this program. I've never done it. I've never done it.
That's a
So
good one.
you certainly shouldn't be doing that either. Who am I fucking kidding? All right. So I am now up, ladies and
I was
gentlemen.
waiting for that.
I have taken James Mitchell, the tight end from Virginia Tech. I have taken Samare Toure, the wide receiver from Nebraska. And I have taken Jordan Stout, the punter from Penn State. So next up, I'm going to take a teammate of Marcus Jones's. Pops Mafia comes in and says Marcus Jones. I'm going to take a teammate of Marcus Jones, another player who plays in that secondary at Houston. I was so tempted to take Jack Jones from Arizona State here, a guy who plays in my backyard, a guy I'm a really big fan of. I'll save my spiel about him in case anyone else selects him. But I'm going to pass up Jack Jones here. I'm going to take my first defensive player. I'm going to go Damarion Williams. I'm going to call him a DB out of the University of Houston, 5'10", 182 pounds. So he's definitely on the smaller side, a little bit of a diminutive stature, which makes you think that like maybe the Buffalo Bills might be a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger. But this is a guy who's got boundary corner, nickel corner, and safety flex. Really high football IQ because he could play all those different multiple positions. He's a very instinctual player. He's got really good ball skills, reactive athleticism. He's really good in zone coverage. He's got kick and punt return experience. He's going to be a four-phase special teamer in the National Football League. So when I add all of those things up and I look at a back half of the draft type of player, I can sort of see a guy like Damarion Williams being a jack of all trades type of DB, Swiss Army knife. The Buffalo Bills can, move around wherever necessary. And maybe he really does find his niche at one of these positions, whether it's boundary, nickel, or safety, and, can really carve out a role into the future here with the Buffalo Bills. So Damarion Williams, DB from Houston. He's on my board starting round 5. And that leads me to my final pick. Save the running back for last. I feel like some people are probably not going to like me for this pick because I feel like this pick doesn't get talked about a lot, mostly because, for a couple of reasons. One, he's got baby hands. Baby hands is for sure something that digs him. He had some fumbling issues in college, and he also had a very, very, very bad 40 time at the combine. But I am going to go with
off the table.
What?
You said you're talking about fumbles and bad 40 times. Spiller's off the table. He's long gone.
How dare you? How dare you?
I am, believe it or not going to take
get
Tyler
it
Beatty. I like Tyler Beatty, and I feel like I've made my love for Tyler Beatty known on the show. So I'm going to pass on Tyler Beatty here for the sake of the thought experiment. And I'm going with Kaiir Williams, running back from Notre Dame.
I like this pick.
If the Bills don't get a dynamic 3-down back early on, I think Williams is the closest thing you're going to find in this draft to J.D. McKissick, who the Bills were clearly after. They tried to sign him to a contract. They agreed to terms with him. And I think he's a guy you can pair with Singletary right away as a passing down back. He's not an elite athlete, 4.52 RAS with that 4.65 40. He brought it down to a 4.54 40 at his pro day. He didn't have the greatest explosion numbers either, but he had really, really good agility scores. I mean, a 6.94 3-cone tested in the elite range, in terms of RAS. Draft Twitter salivates watching this guy pass block. So that he can contribute on passing downs right away as a pass blocker. He's a really good receiver out of the backfield as well as in the slot. So he's got a clearly defined NFL role. Passing game running back, third downs, obvious passing downs, 2-minute drills. He can come in. He can give Devin Singletary a breather. So Kaiir Williams, he's on my board starting round 4 because of his limitations and his fixed role in the National Football League. I'd rather the Buffalo Bills go after a more dynamic 3-down back. But if they don't, I think a guy like Kaiir Williams in the back half of the draft is a guy who can step in, plug and play. He's got a clearly defined role on this football team. If he can come and he can beat Duke Johnson out for it. So to me, my final pick is going to be Kaiir Williams out of Notre Dame. And it's good. Back to you, Kendall.
All right, so with my last pick, I'm gonna go with Chris Paul out of Tulsa. I like him for the guard tackle versatility. We've talked about the idea of perhaps double dipping and getting a guy that can play guard center and then getting another guy that can play guard tackle. Um, Randy, you had the point where you want them to play just one role, and I agree with that in theory, but I also think Aaron Cromer doesn't. He wants these guys to know multiple positions so he knows the responsibilities of his teammate next to him and all that, yada yada, coach speak. But I do like the versatility that Chris Paul provides. We know that there is a glaring need at offensive tackle to an extent, considering Bobby Hart was re-signed. And I like what he can do at guard. I really like his athleticism. He shows good long speed if he's asked to pull, if he's asked to get out of his stance quickly on outside zone runs. He can do all of that. I just wish, honestly speaking, like behind the fourth wall kind of thing, I wish I had more tape on him at guard because I thought he was fine in terms of play strength and anchor ability when it came to playing tackle, but that's against dudes that are, 250 pounds. I want to see how he can do with 300 pounders in the interior. So that's the only thing where it's kind of like a box left unchecked for me. I would like to see some tape of him at guard, but I really like the athlete that you're getting and the traits that you're getting and the character you're getting from a guy like Chris Paul. I think in the 5th round, you'd be getting a great developmental prospect. Like Randy said with Lacita Smith, this isn't someone that's being asked to play right away. This is a great scenario to draft a guy and allow him to develop behind established veterans in this league and let them learn and let them get better and hopefully become the best versions of themselves. So I like Chris Paul, the tools that he has to offer. I think it would be a good pick for the Buffalo Bills in the late rounds.
All right, Tilt, you are up. Your final selection.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth on this one. I know I want to draft a defensive back, but I don't know who I really want to draft. There's some good names on the board, but I'm going to throw out a name again that maybe a lot of people haven't heard of. Damari Mathis is out there. He's an option, but I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to go with a guy that I think will get drafted or has a good chance to get drafted but is playing in a small school, but just freak athlete and has a lot of potential and a guy I wouldn't mind taking late in the draft. And that's Sam Webb out of Missouri Western, the corner. He's 6'1", 202, insane athleticism, tested high on the RAS. His strengths, according to SIS, overall athleticism, ball skills, and zone coverage. The blurb they have on SIS about him is, while he has to improve his effort as he makes the transition to the next level, high-quality ceiling player due to his athleticism, length, and ball skills. Mostly played outside corner, but lined up at safety occasionally. Has good play speed to pair with long wingspan. It exceeds his natural frame. His knack is to always get his hands on the ball, speaks to its competitiveness, but lacks some aggression in run support. So obviously coaching him up in the run game is something I feel the Bills coaching staff can do. It's never really necessarily been a huge strength, honestly, of our corners to begin with. But you love the athletic profile of a guy like Sam Webb, and a guy that would naturally fit into a zone system like the Bills run, to go with that plus athleticism. So from Missouri Western, Sam Webb, probably a guy that doesn't get talked about a lot because of where he played and the competition he faced. But as a late round guy, as an athlete and a guy that could fit your system, I like Sam Webb a lot, and I would not be surprised if he gets drafted.
Yeah. Sam Webb is like sort of one of those small school corners. You got the Zions of the world, the Josh Williams of the world, the Tariq Woollens of the world. He's sort of the one that goes and flies a little bit under the radar. And just, this is off the top of my head, so I'm paraphrasing here, but sometimes NFL.com on their draft profiles, because he was invited to the combine with his measurables and his traits. At the bottom, sometimes they have a blurb like AFC Scout says this, NFC Scout says that, things of that nature, that Lance Zierlein picks up over the course of the year. And the blurb at the bottom is from like a regional scout or an area scout. So it wasn't some high up kind of guy, but he said, the kid's very raw, but he's got really good traits. He's big and he runs fast. He's going to get drafted, pretty much just based off of those traits alone. So I definitely think Sam Webb could be like sort of like a Daryl Johnson type of corner, like where you're drafting those traits at the very end and hoping you can turn it into something. So
Right.
big fan of Sam Webb, especially late, especially if it's a double dip. That might be a really good double dip
Yeah.
corner
Yeah.
as well. All right, Randy, last but certainly not least, your final selection in this late round gem snake draft.
Okay. So with my last pick, I want somebody that's going to have a chance to come in here and compete. You might be able to take somebody's job, might be a good depth piece, backup, be able to step in case of an injury. We talked about him beforehand. Charleston Rambo, wide receiver, Miami via Oklahoma.
All right, I like it. Like we talked about him at length at the beginning of the show here. A guy who caught touchdowns from Kyler Murray, caught touchdowns from Jalen Hurts, was a real field stretcher in that Oklahoma offense. Had some drop issues. Went to Miami with De'Ara King, put up some really good numbers. Had a really good East-West shrine. He's not the fastest dude in the world. He wins down the field in some of the ways that maybe a Gabriel Davis wins down the field. Really good at stacking guys. So a guy like Charleston Rambo later on in the draft, I don't think this gets talked about enough. I mean, Isaiah McKenzie, Jamison Crowder, the Bills are sort of OJ Howard, like over the middle of the football field. The Bills are kind of fine. They're fine, like pressing pause and waiting a year if they need to. If Gabriel Davis or Stephon Diggs gets hurt, like who is the boundary guy? Is it Jamison Crowder playing on the boundary? Is it Isaiah Hodgins? Is it Marquez Stevenson? So there's a little bit more question mark on the boundary if one of the top two receivers gets hurt. So I think a guy who has the ability to play outside of the hash marks and a guy who could play sort of on the boundary as a wide receiver should definitely be on the Buffalo Bills radar. All right. So I'm going to run through the draft one more time. Each team, I'm going to run through them. Let us know in the comment section what players you think were ripped off, should have been drafted, and weren't drafted. And let us know who you think. Let us know.
I want to tell you guys
the
some of the
best
ones.
draft.
Yeah, and I want to tell you guys some of the ones I had on my list too that I didn't end up picking. I'm sure you had some too.
We'll get to that too, because I almost didn't take Kaiir. There was another running back that I was super interested in that we haven't really had a chance to talk about on the show, but me and Randy talked about him at length during the season when we were doing some of our college football stuff. But my picks were James Mitchell, tight end, Virginia Tech. I also took, I can't read my own handwriting here, Samari Toure, wide receiver, Nebraska, Jordan Stout, punter, Penn State, Demarion Williams, cornerback / safety, Houston, and Kaiir Williams, running back, Notre Dame. Kendall went Monteric Brown, cornerback, Arkansas, Damian Pierce, running back, Florida, Eric Izuganma, wide receiver, Texas Tech, John Ridgway, defensive tackle, Arkansas, and Chris Paul, offensive lineman extraordinaire, inside-outside flexed from Tulsa. Tilt went Velus Jones Jr., wide receiver / return specialist from Tennessee. Ty Chandler, running back from North Carolina. Chance Campbell, linebacker, Ole Miss. Luke Wattenberg, interior offensive lineman, Washington. And Sam Webb, cornerback, Missouri State. And then Missouri Western, my apologies. And then last but not least, Randy went Quan Wright, running back from South Carolina. Mike Rose, linebacker from Iowa State. Caleb Evans, cornerback, Missouri. Lasita Smith, guard, Virginia Tech. And Charleston Rambo, wide receiver, University of Miami. So looking through the comment section, nobody took Damone Clark, the guy who's got to maybe take that medal, is going to definitely have to take that medical red shirt. I know, Randy, you were very high on Damone Clark all throughout the season, and then he was a really fast riser until that injury was discovered in the pre-draft process at the Combine. Pops Mafia, one of our favorites here at the Air Raid Hour, JoJo Doman, sort of a redundant skill set with a guy like Matt Milano, but definitely like a guy like JoJo Doman. I mean, his coverage skills, absolutely incredible what he could do at the linebacker position. I believe Marquise Hayes was the name that Amy Wagner was looking for, the guard from Oklahoma. So a number of guys who sort of didn't make the cut, no Justin Ross or Max Mitchell or Damone Clark, says Chris Jenke. Max Mitchell was actually on the ineligible list, but I'll tell you what, I'm surprised you guys didn't take punters. That's the one thing I want to note here. Ryan Stonehouse, 3-time All Mountain West punter, a guy who averaged 50.981 yards per punt in 2021, 47.8 yards throughout his entirety of his college career. Big booming leg, had a big Shrine Week. Ryan Stonehouse goes undrafted here. Jake Camarda, the big leg, who's punted in some big games from the University of Georgia. Known for his hang time, which is something the Buffalo Bills might really be interested in. A lot of fair catches for Jake Camarda when he punts the ball at UGA. So the punters is what shocked me the most. Dave, who are some people that didn't quite make your cut?
Oh my God. Well, Marcus Jones was the obvious one, but I had him on my no matter what list as a special teamer, and I'd already taken Velus Jones. So I felt like I was going to go a different direction there. At the corner position. At the safety position, Marquise Bell is a guy who's been kind of on my short list for a while. Was tempted to take him there with that last pick, but also figured that, I'd rather take the corner. Tyson Anderson is a guy who gets a lot of love for being that athlete from Toledo, was not on our ineligible list, who is also another safety that I thought could have been picked. But there were two guys that really I was close to picking at the point where I picked Chance Campbell. One was Cade Otton, the tight end from Washington, who I think probably should have been on our do not draft list, but wasn't. And maybe with the amount of tight ends we had, we needed the numbers to have him in the pool. But I thought Cade Otton was a guy I would have really considered picking at some point in this draft. Very steady, not super flashy, ton of experience at Washington, good blocker, good hands. Really just an all-around good tight end. So I thought he might have been a guy that someone would have been interested in taking. And obviously, no one took any edge players, right? Which I thought was the other interesting thing, because you have guys like Dominique Robinson, who now I think could be in play for the Bills with his profile. Obviously, they're not afraid to go to that Miami well. So guys like Dominique Robinson to me, and I mean, Michael Clemens I've mentioned before, but no one took an edge, which I thought was also pretty interesting.
Kendall, how about you? Anyone left off the list that you were a little shocked by?
Not particularly shocked that people were left off, but I mean, there were a few that I was going to go for. I was thinking about picking Bo Melton. I almost picked Jerome Ford. Kind of wanted to pick Kevin Austin Jr. out of Notre Dame, kind of like that bag of tools that you could work with there. I almost picked Ben Brown, but I feel like I've talked about him already. So
that's why I didn't take Izzy Obina.
Yeah,
because
and then I was going to go with Alex Wright at edge, but we've talked about Alex Wright before. The one that I was really thinking about was Micah McFadden, but I couldn't really find a spot per se. And then also, you guys heard what I had to say about Verone McKinley. I wanted to pick him, but I couldn't do it justice if I wanted to.
Randy, the one guy I'm shocked that you didn't select, and maybe you just don't think he's maybe the caliber of player of the 5 that you selected. I'm honestly surprised you didn't take Nick Muse, the tight end from South Carolina.
Well, I think that he could easily be had as a UDFA, honestly. I mean, he put up real good numbers on the bench, and he's a try-hard player. He's got good hands, but I mean, you just got to be honest with yourself and say, is this a guy that I would want to try and invest a draft pick in when you have other options? And the answer for me was no. I mean, I think he could be a priority UDFA or a 7th rounder for some team, but I'm happy with the guys I was able to pick. I'm glad that nobody was reading my mind and took some of them. But funny, Chris. Yeah.
And the guy that was the toughest for me to leave off the list outside of Jack Jones, who I sort of already mentioned, I really liked some of those DBs in the back half of the draft with kick return, punt return flex. So Jack Jones is a guy he's was a 4-star recruit at USC, really good athletic profile despite his diminutive stature, kick return, punt return, flex. You can see him nickel boundary, sort of versatility, those kind of guys late in the draft as the second corner you take, really interests me. But a guy who I have had projected throughout this entire draft process as a UDFA for a couple of reasons. Number one, his diminutive stature. And number two, he also has a baseball career he could always turn back on. but I'm a big fan, and Randy knows this from our conversations in season.
Sure.
Jerrion Ely from Ole Miss is a player, super intriguing, home run speed, elusive runner. He's got receiving ability, but all of that is in a 5'8", 191-pound frame. He's got a limited NFL role, just like Kaiir Williams in the passing game on third downs and obvious passing downs and 2-minute drills. He did a little bit of kick returning at Ole Miss and was relatively effective in his small sample size, but not a ton of it. So Jerrion Ely, because of that diminutive stature, because you're not going to be getting probably the pass blocking that you would get from a guy like Kaiir because of that diminutive stature, Ely's on my board starting round 6 as a guy. If you just want to take a stab at a player, a guy like Jerrion Ely is definitely someone that intrigued me. Some other names that shocked me: Max Borghi, another running back that's a favorite in Bills Mafia. Danny Gray was a guy I saw mentioned at least once in the comment section. Derek Deese Jr. is a tight end that I'm a pretty big fan of out of San Jose State. Obviously, Dave already mentioned Obina Eze. I like Luke Goki from Central Michigan as a right guard, right tackle flex. I've mentioned that on the show before. Jatir Carter from Southern is an offensive lineman I really like. Ben Brown, we've already sort of mentioned a little bit. Dominique Robinson, we've already sort of mentioned a little bit. Tyreek Smith from Ohio State is a guy who could fall down draft boards a little bit. He might be an interesting guy to add to the defensive end rotation. No one took Neil Farrell Jr., one of our guys that we've talked about a ton. Jaden Peavy, who we met with at the Combine from Texas A&M. Noah Ellis from Idaho is another one tech. And then looking at linebackers, Kyron Johnson from Kansas, big fan of his. Jeremiah Gemmel from UNC, I've mentioned him on the show before. Aaron Hansford from Texas A&M. Nefi Sewell. Jermaine Waller, the corner. Really a big fan of his game, even though his testing probably makes him a UDFA. And then to round it out at safety, we already mentioned McKinley, Bubba Bolden, our guy Reed Blankenship. Marquand McCall is a defensive tackle I did miss too, by the way. And then Smoke Monday is a guy who I know has a lot of love, but he's sort of a box safety. I don't know if that's exactly what the Buffalo Bills are looking for there. So there is a ton of names later on in this draft. And as we do mock drafts and stuff, it's all about just finding a fit. Like, how can they make the roster now?
Who was
what
that?
role do they play now? And
who's that Auburn safety, the box safety we liked last year? Forgot his name already.
Yeah, I've already forgot. Yep, Jamie Sherwood.
He went to the Jets, and he converted to linebacker. So he's a linebacker.
Full-time linebacker now.
I can see something like that for a guy like Smoke Monday if he gets drafted by a certain team. He definitely is. He's really comfortable at the line of scrimmage like that. So, gentlemen, do we want to do a mock draft tonight? Is that something that
I'm sure Randy does
and behooves you?
Yeah, sure.
I
was debating whether to take Rodney Dingus actually from Western Louisiana Tech.
I was debating. I almost took EJ Perry as a backup quarterback.
Ooh, Keel Glass, Derek King.
I like EJ Perry.
I've already forgot the name of the San Diego State offensive guard that we loved 3 weeks ago.
How do you forget about Bill Dunkel?
Bill Dunkel,
baby.
Mock Draft Monday says Pete and Anna. We got to do it, right?
Yeah.
So
what are the rules tonight?
How does this sound, gentlemen? How about we let Randy take the reins of this mock draft?
Okay.
And we just sit back and judge a shot of them. How does that sound?
What?
Randy, does that sound good to you? Does that sound good to you, Randy?
Yeah, whatever.
We can obviously give Randy some input, but Randy is going to be the general manager in this.
He can also take
scenario.
Take comments from the comment section.
Yeah, Randy. What I would say is Randy takes the lead, and then if he has a question for anyone, just ask. If you want to know what we think, where our head is at, take our temperature, whatever, go for it. But I think you should take executive decision on
Armand Brown comes in, says Xander Horvath from Purdue. I always appreciate a white running back. So yeah, definitely as a UDFA, I would consider that. I think he's going to be more of like an H-back or like a fullback type in the National Football League. So a guy like Xander Horvath, probably redundant skill set here with a guy like Reggie Gilliam.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right. So
I'm ready.
Let's go. Randy is ready to go. Randy was just telling me off air how he's kind of just been a little grown a little weary of the mock drafts lately. So this is us trying to help him find his love.
We all have mock draft fatigue, I think, at this point.
Yes, we do. I
Bill
didn't even
fan,
do mock draft
1970.
Monday.
But this is why
Wow,
on the
that's
Monday
great.
before the draft, we're gonna do just the first round.
Yeah.
It's gonna be different, a little bit different. So, all right, Randy, you got a
What do-
couple trade offers here.
All right, I can't really see the box here. What do we got?
All right, so the Colts are offering you their second, fourth, and fifth. Their second is pick 42 for your first, pick 25.
It's interesting.
The Ravens are offering you a second, third, and sixth for your first pick.
It's also interesting.
Second and third, that's interesting. But you drop down 20 spots for that one. And then the Bears are offering you a second and 2/5 for your first rounder.
Decline the Bears.
Okay.
That ain't happening. No.
All right. This is an interesting one. Second and a third.
And the
a
second
sixth.
is what, 45?
Yeah,
Yep,
you drop 20
45.
spots.
Yeah.
That's not bad, honestly.
It's not terrible, but you're dropping 20 spots.
Yeah,
I feel like this is one we should counter offer and see what's on the board.
we could do that. You want to see what's on the board, Randy?
No.
We got
Give me it now.
No. You know what? Tell them thanks but no
pound
thanks.
sand.
We're gonna take our pick. We're
All
gonna
right.
take our pick.
All right, we're gonna tell them to pound sand. Who do you want?
All right. So with this pick, we have options. We
Mhm.
could take Jahan Dotson here, but we're going to get to another discussion about that position later. I think right here, we're gonna set ourselves up for the future, and we're going to take Devin Lloyd, a linebacker from Utah.
Ooh.
Wow.
Incendiary.
And so
Let it be known that Randy's drafting when it
can
gets
I
posted.
can I say that I was very much opposed to Devin Lloyd as the Bills pick, even though I loved Devin Lloyd. To me is a top 15 player in this draft.
Yeah,
I think he's
love
one of the
the
15
player.
best players in this draft. I just didn't see a role for him unless you were trading Tremaine Edmonds. But the more I see people like Kendall and Anthony and Eric breaking down Devin Lloyd, the more that I can see and envision maybe the Buffalo Bills utilizing him. And I'm not going to say he's going to be Micah Parsons, but utilize him in a Micah Parsons type role. Maybe go a little bit more 4-3 base, use him as an edge rusher to maybe come in and give Von Miller some breathers, because despite the fact that you're probably going to want him to play off-ball linebacker, he does have really good bend and can rush the passer. I think that the Buffalo Bills could find a niche, could find a role for Devin Lloyd early on, and he could make an impact early on in his career, even with Tremaine Edmonds here.
Yeah.
And then he could eventually fill into that Tremaine Edmonds role in 2023. So I was one who was pretty much out on Devin Lloyd unless we trade Tremaine, but I'm very much in on Devin Lloyd. I love the pick from Randy here.
All right, Randy. We
So-
are sitting at pick 57 here. Some names on the board.
Oh man, we got some options. What corners are available right now? I'm totally kidding. It's Breece Hall. It doesn't matter. It's just Breece Hall.
I was gonna say your picture makes me think that you're going to pick Breece Hall there.
And that would be
I
the
don't think
first,
that's a
seconds of my
CJ
life.
Spiller.
and that would be the first running back off the board. That would be
Yeah,
absolutely
that's
wild.
At 57. There's no
Which-
way.
Just so everyone listening understands, that is not going to happen. The last time a running back went that late was 2014. It was Bishop Sankey to the Tennessee Titans
God.
at like 47.
The
It's
disrespect
not going to happen.
The disrespect for this running back class, I think, is real. People
Yeah.
are like, "Well, the class last year." I take.
What are they
Breece Hall over
offering for
Trevor-
that trade, by the way?
I would take Breece Hall over
They
Trevor
want.
Etienne.
They are offering their third and fourth for your third, fourth, fifth,
Oh
and
my
sixth.
God.
What do you guys think?
I mean,
I like
it's
it.
not that bad, honestly. You move
It's
up.
a big trade up
20
in both third and fourth round.
Yeah, you move up 24 spots in each
Mhm.
round, and you
So-
already have 2 sixths, so you're really
Just losing the
lose a
fifth.
fifth.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, just losing the fifth. So, but I mean, what are we jumping up for here is the question. We've already got our stud running back. We've already got our linebacker of the future. What do we want?
corner or wide receiver would be the only thing we're moving up for, right?
Okay, so what corner is worth jumping up for?
Trey
here?
McBride is still available, by the way.
John Mechie's available.
John
That's good.
Mechie,
Oh, okay. So that answers one question.
Kalante Taylor, Marcus Jones,
And-
Martin Emerson.
Yep. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this trade.
Okay.
All right. And we didn't get a chance to talk about this before, but I was thinking today that I think one of the ongoing conversations after this draft is going to be who won the decision of John Mechie versus Sky Moore. And I've waffled back and forth. I want to take John Mechie here.
Okay. All right.
Here's my one reservation with Kelvin Austin's still on the board too, by the way. Does that change your opinion at all with Kelvin Austin on the board?
No.
Okay. My one concern with John Mechie, I think John Mechie's a really good route runner. I think the speed will come back. I think he'd be like a really good speed slot option. I think he just I think he could be an heir apparent to Cole Beasley and add a little bit more dynamicism to what Cole Beasley did. Like, I think over time, that's the role he could fill in this Buffalo Bills offense. But the one thing that I am concerned about, the one thing that I see in scouting report after scouting report after scouting report, is the guy's not a hands catcher. Kendall, can you speak to that? Just about his ability to catch point, the way he catches the football, things of that nature. Do you have any concerns just about John Mechie as an actual catcher of the football?
I have some concerns. I wouldn't say it's something. It's kind of Randy talked about it earlier in the show with like Dawson Knox and his evolution with catching the football and relating that to Charleston Rambo and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like if you can't catch, like you wouldn't have been a D1 wide receiver, especially at Alabama, if you can't catch the football. You have to have a baseline of being able to catch the football if you're going to play at that level. And then furthermore, if you're at that baseline, you can get a little bit better. You can still get coaching with the right work ethic, like Randy said, all of that stuff. It can get better. But I do agree. I have some concerns, not necessarily that he's not a hands catcher. I think he lacks some confidence in off-frame catches. That's what I noticed when I saw on tape. I thought he was fine in terms of catching the football, but in those contested catch situations and off-frame stuff, that's really where my concern comes. But he can obviously work on it, and the rest of his game is great.
And Randy, before you say no to this trade, you'd be giving up a 7th to move up to 96 here. But there's a name still on the board. Now? This is you're giving up your 4th and your 7th to move up back into the 3rd here. And you'd only have a 6th round pick left after this. But there's a name sitting on the board right here. There's a name sitting on the board. Martin Emerson from Mississippi State might be a tough guy to pass up on here. There's no other cornerbacks ahead of him. So if any of these teams between 96 and 105 are going to take a corner in this simulator, the cornerback that they're taking is Martin Emerson. So do you believe in Jalen Armour-Davis, Kobe Bryant, and Caleb Evans enough where you'd want to keep a 7th round pick and pass up on an opportunity to grab Martin Emerson here? So that's something to think about as you decide. Because if you trade up here, all you have left is a 6th round pick after this. That's all you got left.
I mean, I believe in Kobe Bryant big time. So I don't know about that. I wanted to go back to Mechie. Part of what sold me on him is 2 things. One is that, from what I've heard, the word out of Alabama is that he was the alpha in the room of that wide receiver group. That includes Jameson Williams, who was a transfer from Ohio State because he couldn't get playing time. Now, we understand there's politics in college and depth charts, things like that. It's not always about the best talent, but to be considered the alpha in that room means that you've got some gusto. And to back that up, you got the clip that Prohaska shared the other day about him chasing down a fumble or an interception, knocking the guy off his feet and causing a fumble. So, with those things in mind, I like the edge that he brings on the field, and so that's why I was kind of leaning towards Mechie over when you said Calvin Austin. So
that's fair. It's definitely fair.
Just to throw that out there. I don't want to take that trade. We'll reject that. I don't know if you already did or not.
Nope, but we're moving on.
Let's see if we get our guy.
Maybe Emerson might still be there for you.
Yeah.
You're on the clock.
Oh,
One pick
You want that
before.
pick?
One pick before. Ooh.
You still got some strong. I mean, this is a spot where if you're one of those people who thinks that the Buffalo Bills need to draft a CB2, you might have to pass on Ariza here. You might have to pass on Cam Jurgens here, Tyreek Smith here. You might have Majai Sanders here, Alec Lindstrom here. Like there are some guys you might have to pass on if you feel like because you don't have another pick till the 6th round. So D'Angelo Malone is the guy who's tough to pass on. But you look at this cornerback here, the cornerbacks on the board. You're looking at bottom of the barrel projects in the 6th round. There are some guys here, whether it's Kobe Bryant or Caleb Evans or Jalen Armour Davis, Mario Goodrich, even though I think a lot of us here aren't so high on Mario Goodrich here.
Yeah, I can't take the Clemson cupcakes, so we're going to pass on Goodrich.
But there are certainly some names there. I think after Monteric Brown, it gets a little wishy-washy. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's up to you. But obviously, I'm just letting you know. I think that if your team, we need a corner, you're gonna have to take it. You're gonna pull the trigger now.
Oh, what picks do we have left? Do we have a 5th? Or is it
180. We have 185, and then like it's either 201 or the 236.
You have this pick. You have a 6th round pick and a 7th round pick.
So no 5th.
No fifth.
So I really want to take Jurgens here, to be honest with you, but
yeah, I don't blame you. He's
big jerky
on the board.
I feel like it's a sore thumb sitting out there, but at the same time, the corner issue is there. I mean, how much do I trust Dane Jackson?
If it was me, my opinion, I'd take Jurgens because for the corners that are out there still, unless he really felt that good about maybe like a Goodrich or McCollum, I guess you could take Monteric Brown. I'd probably be probably okay taking a guy like ITS or Sam Webb later and not feeling like I had a huge drop off.
I agree. I agree with Tilt there.
I agree
with Tilt there. I think we're going to take Jurgens. We're gonna move it up and take Jurgens and
all right,
get ready to have some fun.
Enough.
We are passing.
Well, you like Jurgy too, Steve. So
I love Jurgens. He was in my no matter what list.
I know.
Jelani Woods in the 4th. That's wild.
Yeah, and Brian Robinson going 2 picks later.
That's wild. There goes Kaiir.
Long wait.
This draft machine is like weird right now. It's like
I swear it's only on your computer. I swear.
Yeah.
That happens to me too.
Okay.
Ridgeway in the 4th.
Jumps around like that.
Yeah,
like they just did it rough. Rashad White the 5th. Give me
yeah.
The
consensus on Rashad White around draft circles it's everywhere. There are some people that are like RB3 on him. There are people that are like outside RB10 on him.
Our SIS has him as like 22.
Yeah.
All right, we're coming up here. All right, we are up.
Chase Lucas. I'm not a big fan of Chase Lucas, but he's obviously, I think, got some intangibles the Bills would like. Tariq Castro Fields, an interesting one here. I mean, if he floats your boat, Darion Kendrick. I think even like a Mikael Wright from Oregon would be an interesting pick later on in the draft. Sort of a guy who maybe didn't have the college career people thought he would have, and a guy who was projected to go way higher earlier.
I mean, he came. Who was it? Was Lenore and Graham last year, right? From Oregon, like those guys. That's secondary.
Fight for snaps.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go a little bit off script. I know Judge and I have talked about this guy a little bit, but I think what we're gonna do. What do we have? The 6th, and then we have what? What else after this?
7th. Just the 7th after this.
The 7th.
Here's your pick so far.
I can't take Malcolm Rodriguez because I already took Devin Lloyd. So unfortunately, our guy's off the board here. But I am going to take a corner, and it's going to be Matt Hankins from Iowa State.
Nice.
Or Iowa. Sorry, Iowa. Not Iowa State.
I got to do my work on
I like Hankins. His write-up on TDN is like so positive, and then you go look at his RAS, and it was like a 1 point something.
That's a Bills corner.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Yep.
I like him, though. I like him.
PFF is very high on Matt Hankins as well. That duo all year, me and Randy talked about it. It was It was Kyler Gordon, Trent McDuffie at Washington, and it was Matt Hankins and Riley Moss at Iowa. I mean, they were shutting people down.
I mean, they made plays all year. What else do you want?
Yep.
Jeffrey Gunter. I really like Jeffrey Gunter.
Yeah,
What tight ends are available?
James Mitchell will probably still be available.
I really like Grant.
Oh, no, James Mitchell's off
Who's
the
at
board.
the top of the board, though? It's Nick Muse.
They're really low on Grant Calcaterra.
Yeah.
Age. I think he's 26.
By the way, I know he's a South Carolina guy. Have you guys actually watched Nick Muse play at all?
No, never.
He's Tommy Sweeney. He's Tommy Sweeney.
Yeah,
never watched him play.
Not a whole lot to get excited about, really.
That's coming from Randy too.
I like the way he blocks. He's Tommy Sweeney in the 7th round, TE3. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, you probably don't take Nick Muse because you have Tommy Sweeney. But if you're another team who doesn't have a Tommy Sweeney, you probably look at Nick Muse in the 7th round. And you're like, yeah, that guy can carve out a role as my tight end number 3. Maybe he develops into my tight end number 2. He'll play teams. He'll block on the goal line. Like, he has a role. So I think a guy like Nick Muse, maybe not for the Bills because we have Tommy Sweeney, but remember when we took Tommy Sweeney, all the people were like, Tommy Sweeney's gonna be a Buffalo Bill for the next 10 years. What a smart 7th round pick. That's just a player where you know exactly where his floor is and exactly where his ceiling is. And he can come in, he can contribute from day one. That was the talk. Now, Tommy Sweeney's career has kind of gone off the rails with a number of different injuries and things of that nature. He probably also needs to go to the Dawson Knox School of How to Catch a Football. But a guy like Nick Muse, to me, it's the Spider-Man meme pointing at Tommy Sweeney. It's the exact same player to me. So I think for other teams, he would have a huge interest in the 7th round range.
I like Eric Johnson from Missouri.
He's getting a lot of love. A lot of free draft.
You in the state of Missouri.
What's that, Randy?
What are we thinking here?
I mean, this is a wild card. I think you can go anywhere.
Not taking a punter.
No, I think you can go anywhere with a guy you like here. I mean, probably not corner since you just took Hankins in the 6th, but I mean, you could go with an edge, an IDL.
Go look at interior offensive line again.
Wattenberg is there. Ben Brown.
Nick Ford.
Go look at my guy Xavier.
Sure, Marquise Hayes is still there. Yup.
Xavier Newman Johnson.
Ooh, Doug Kramer is there.
UDFAs.
How about safety? Go to safety.
I like Percy Butler.
Amari Carter, Miami, some connections there. Smoke Monday, Bubba Bolden. I like Percy Butler from Louisiana personally.
Maybe
another corner. Hey,
I'd take Jeffrey Gunter if it was me and I had the pick. I would take Jeffrey Gunter or Luke Wattenberg.
I'm thinking either.
Oh wait, no, you already took Cam Jurgens. Never mind.
I'm
thinking either defensive line, quarterback, or a wild card position that's not a punter.
I'd honestly think of getting a wide receiver here that is more of an outside guy.
Oh, your guy there, Kendall.
Not necessarily Izukanma, but just because I'm so confident that Mechie will be really good at slot, and I think he has versatility to play outside, but I'm much more confident in the slot. Where
Samari party.
I want to hedge the bets.
I like Samari too.
Get an outside guy, but Randy, definitely go with your gut here. That's just kind of my thought, because this is a wild card. This really is just kind of throwing a dart at a dartboard at this point.
Go to tackles.
Obina Eze. Looking good.
I like Eze. He was on my last mock draft I did that I actually published.
216.
Devin Cochran, Vidarian Lowe are both guys I think could fit the mold of Buffalo.
I like Lowe. I liked Cunningham, but I've kind of cooled off on him lately.
I think I'm going to follow Kendall's lead and go outside receiver. Let's go back there. All right, now help me out here because I'm a little bit rusty on this group. Where's our outside receiver here, Kendall? Is it Austin?
Austin,
sure.
Izukanma, Woods,
Turner's outside as well.
Drummond played a little bit of slot for them. That was a wonky offense.
I don't know if I'd want Drummond. I don't know if I'd want him on the boundary just with the speed.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're between Austin, Izukanma, and Woods and Toure if you want. Yeah.
All right. You want take that trade guy. We'll take the Catholic. Let's go with him.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad pick here.
Yeah.
I think he's getting some late love here in the pre-draft.
Yeah, I
I
liked
think a
him.
good draft here.
He was a willing blocker. He's kind of one of those guys who, if he doesn't work out on the outside, you got yourself one of those power slot quasi tight ends. But I think he's got traits to work with on the outside. He's just got to refine that route running.
That's a good draft right there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a big fan of that draft. Obviously, I think most people are going to point to the fact that we didn't get a corner early, and I think a lot of people will point probably to the lack of punter. But I'm a big fan of this draft here. I mean, if you look at it, you are getting your, like I said, a guy in Devin Lloyd who I think can play a role right away and be a game-breaking player on this defense early on, and then slide into that Tremaine Edmonds role. You got Breece Hall, who is a guy who's going to come in and be your all-purpose running back from day one. I think he's going to really add a really good element to this offense. John Mechie, a guy who's speed slot. I think he'll age really nicely into that role over the next 4 or 5 years as the slot receiver for this team. Cam Jurgens is your Mitch Morse era parent and a guy who can, grow and develop as a backup interior lineman. Matt Hankins can compete with Dane Jackson for CB2 right away, I think, the way the Buffalo Bills groom sort of their defensive backs. And then Kevin Austin Jr. gives you the athletic profile you look for in a receiver to compete with the Marquez Stevensons and the Isaiah Hodgins of the world. I like the draft.
Yeah. So, I mean, what this reflects is kind of opposition to the groupthink in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Not taking the cornerback high, going a different direction, trying to find other answers. And also what I'm looking at is, 3 immediate contributors with another maybe 1 or 2 that get good snaps by the end of the year. So you're talking about potentially a 70 or 80% hit rate on this group. So not bad.
I mean, if the Bills do come out of this draft with only 6 picks, that's going to be what you're hoping, right? You're going to be hoping that there's 3 or 4 contributors, and then the other 2 guys likely make the roster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of what you're coming out of the draft with if you only have 6 picks, I think.
Right.
Now, again, they could have like first 4 rounds and then have like 2 7th rounders. Like, who knows, right? Like, that doesn't seem likely, but if they end up with 6 picks, I'm hoping it's like earlier picks, like, and then maybe 1 late one, like here with Austin, who could potentially crack the roster.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that should just about do it for us this evening. First of all, thank you to our special guest, Randy Hardman, killing it as always. That was a killer mock. Thank you, Randy, for joining us. Make sure you go ahead and follow him on Twitter at Randy Hardman52. Well worth the follow. Just for the trolling alone, he is well worth the follow. So I always appreciate that, Randy.
What are you talking about trolling? I don't do that.
Everyone's definition. Yeah, that's right. You got burners to do that for you, don't you?
No.
But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to Randy. I'll make sure over the course of the next couple of days to post these this snake draft, the results of the snake draft and this mock draft on social media for you all to rip apart like you always do on the Twitter and tell Kendall his is the best or Dave's is the best and just leave me out in the
Judge,
cold.
we love you. Judge, we love you. It's okay.
I'm going to start pandering to the people at some point instead of doing what I like. I'm just going to do what the people like at some point. At some point, I'll learn my lesson. But seriously, guys, thank you so much. We are 11 days away. On Thursday's show, we will be covering 2nd, 3rd rounders. We'll be talking all about the day 2 guys. Then on Monday, we'll be setting the board. Who are the guys that the Buffalo Bills should be honing in on at pick 25? And then we are going to do a full first round mock draft from pick 1 to pick number 32. And we're going to seriously, we'll make maybe some trades that we think make sense. We're going to look and see who the teams have been visiting with, pre-draft visits, etc. We're going to try to mock everything leading up to Buffalo's pick. Because I think right now, the easy thing to do is Chris Olave is still on the board for almost everyone every time at pick 22. I think just recently TDN started taking him off their mock drafts. I think if we all think about it in reality, it looks good on paper taking Chris Olave at pick 25. Is that really based in reality? So that's sort of the exercise that we're going to play on Monday. What's based in reality? What's not? What are our options at pick number 25? Are there options to trade up? Maybe do we consider trading down? things of that nature on Monday. And then Thursday night, we're right here with full draft coverage from pick number 1 to pick number 32 on Thursday. You will be here with the Air Raid Hour, special guest Anthony Prohaska, Anthony Romeo. I believe Sterling will be involved as well. So we'll be getting a rotating crew, Kevin Masseri, Mike Bunt. You obviously got Greg, Aaron, and Eric on location in Vegas. So we'll be rotating people on through this show, picks 1 through 32. And we'll have you fully covered here at Cover 1 for the NFL Draft on Thursday, Friday, and of course on Saturday. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're still here, thank you so much. Smash that like button on the way out. If you're listening on demand, smash that like button. That helps us out a lot. Leave a comment in the comment section. Share. At the end of the day, word of mouth is the best way to spread the message. So if you enjoy this show, let someone you think would also enjoy the show in on the secret here on Monday and Thursday nights here at the Cover 1 Sports Network, the Air Raid Hour. And if you're listening on audio, thank you so much for that as well. And if you could subscribe, leave us a review, whether it's on Spotify or Apple, that would be great as well. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Randy just going to leave us out to dry here? No,
Go
go Bills,
Bills.
Randy. There we go. Go Bills. Also, make sure that you head back to the Cover 1 page and watch that Charlie Kohler film room. It is a really good thing that Eric did. Broke it down film with Charlie Kohler, one of my guys and one of my favorite guys. Hope the Buffalo Bills end up snagging Charlie Kohler maybe in the 4th, 5th round.
Chuck Kohler, TE1
for that. All right, for real this time. Go Bills.
Go
Go
Bills.
Bills.
Go Bills.
Are we having fun yet?